meters. The walls at the foot are 5 meters thick. The walls of the tower are of such thickness that they could resist the impact of the strongest battering ram and stone-throwing artillery, which is why it has survived until today. There are some legends about the Maiden Tower. In ancient times, a widowed Shah decided to marry his own daughter. Horrified by the forthcoming marriage to her father, she placed a condition to construct for her a tower. When the tower was constructed, she threw herself into the sea. The marriage of father and daughter, or brother and sister, in a Sassanid epoch, in the 5th to 6th centuries AD, was considered a sacred custom in Transcaucasia, recommended by the church. So the Shah's intention was not a whim, but the observance of an intrinsic and sacred tradition. According to another legend, the ancient city Baku, surrounded in 3 rows with castled walls, was besieged by enemies for 90 days. Inside these walls, the black smoking temple made all rites to rescue the sacred hearth. The main priest of the temple, the fire, announced to the fire worshippers, "Tomorrow Shah will be killed. One innocent force will kill him." Suddenly, the doors of the temple opened, and near the smoking fire stood a fiery maid with fiery flowing hair, with a fiery sword in her hands. "You must rescue the sacred city, the capital of inextinguishable fires," the priest told her. The maiden, with a face like the moon, went up to the armies of the mighty Nureddin. The fiery maiden released her compatriots, but fell in love with her commander, killed by her, and, preferring to die after the demise of the man she loved, she thrust the sword into her breast, her soul to rest eternally in the temple in front of the sacred fire. The fires of the temple went out and turned into a tower of release named in honor of the doomed maiden, Guzgalazi. After 7 days of hurricane winds, dim fires started burning far from the fortified walls of the sacred city Baku. They were magical and sparkled in memory of the fiery maid. And right in this new place was erected a temple which sheltered all priests from the fire, illuminating the souls of the believers in the virtue of the sacred flame. In ancient times, the fire of Baku made it one of the most venerated sanctuaries of the Zoroastrian fire worshippers. From all over the world, people flocked here to worship, an eternal flame coming from the well. The water was salty, but suddenly it disappeared. A burning cord was thrown in to find out what happened, and the well ignited immediately. And since then, the fire has never gone out. The Ateshka constructions, which have survived almost complete, date back to the beginning of the 18th century. In those times, when Zoroastrianism was the main religion of Azerbaijan, the followers of this religion built their sanctuaries and temples in places which naturally produced spontaneous ignition gases, which they worshipped. These temples were called Ateshka, which in Farsi language means place of the fire, the house of the fire. Via ancient trade routes, the caravans with Indian luxury goods arrived and took away with them not only salt, oil, silk, but also stories about wonderful fires on the coast of the Caspian Sea. And Hindu pilgrims were drawn to the distant Absheron to worship the fire. Even today, the adherents of Zoroastrianism revere this place. A recent example of this being when a pilgrim from India visited Ateshka, he asked the museum manager to burn his body after death in this temple of sacred fires. By the beginning of the first millennium BC, such large slave-owning states as Mana and Media had settled in the territory of Azerbaijan. In the middle of the 6th century BC, these lands came under the authority of the Amanidian kings of Iran. But at the end of the 4th century BC, the government of part of these lands was restored after invasion by the armies of Alexander the Great. Ancient writers named the state Atropatenia, after the name of the governor of one of the southern areas of Azerbaijan. As a consequence, Iranians named the state Azerbaijan, and Arabs named it Azerbaijan and Azerbaijan. In the middle of the 9th century appeared the great reign of the Shirvan Shahs. For a long time, the capital of the state was the city of Shamaha, and in the 15th century, Halilullah I transferred the capital to the city of Baku. Halilullah was the son and successor of Ibrahim I, whose reign was contemporaneous with the victories of the outstanding commander of the East, Emir Temur. When in 1386, Emir Temur decided to conquer Azerbaijan, Ibrahim, trying to protect his state, went to Temur. He presented him with gifts, 9 copies of each, according to the Oriental tradition, but he presented only 8 slaves. When Emir Timur asked why there were but 8 slaves, Ibrahim Shah answered, "Master, the 9th slave I am. I prefer my being slave to the destruction of my people." Timur liked this so much that he called him his son, presented him with noble attire, and appointed him the governor of Shirvan and Shamaha. Thus the Shah saved his people from the bloodshed. The fortification gates connect 2 most beautiful parts of the city, ancient Baku, Ichere Shaha, and old Baku, Baku Foshta. You can see the composition above the gates, cut on a stone depicting two lions, which guard a massive bull's head. This was the coat of arms of ancient Baku. In 1683, a German traveler and scientist, Kempfer, visited Baku and interpreted the coat of arms. The bull's head symbolized the city of Baku. The images of moon and sun were symbols of day and night. Together, the intricate arms meant the following. Lions, fortress walls guard the bull. The city during the day and night. These walls saw the storm of Mongol Tatars, the siege of the troops of Shah Ismail Safavi, bombardment by the armies of Peter the Great, and near these very walls the head of the Russian army general, Tsitsanov, was cut off. Local limestone served as the building material for fortress walls. Local limestone served as the building material for fortress walls. For mortar, a strong limestone solution, mixed in milk, egg fibers, and camel wool was applied. The wall's length was about 500 meters. The walls surrounded the city in 2 and even in 3 lines. Thus, the city was embraced like a ring, like a jewel in its setting. The Baku Fortress is an open-air museum with an area of 22 hectares. A unique treasury of medieval architecture embodies in stone the history of Baku. There are 44 ancient monuments in the fortress. Time has kept the silhouette of a feudal city. The picturesque narrow streets with steep widening steps, unexpected bends and turns, make it a model medieval city. The Shirvanshah Palace complex, built mainly in the 15th century, is located on top of one of the hills of the fortress area. On the area, equal to 1 hectare, there is a well-preserved palace, Divan Khan, burial chamber of the Shirvanshahs, a palace mosque with minaret, bath, ovdan, mausoleum of the court scientist Syed Yaha Bakuvi, and oriental entrance portal. The upper courtyard was designed for official ceremonies. The lower courtyard consisted of 2 sites and had a more intimate character. The modest furnishings of this huge building, which don't even have a main entrance, is in complete contradiction with the representations of Middle Eastern royalty's love of luxury and splendor. The exact date of the construction of the palace has yet to be ascertained. Probably there was a sanctuary at the top of Baku Hill on which the Shirvanshahs constructed for themselves a cult memorial complex, and the palace itself had probably not yet been established. The 2-story building consists of 52 rooms. 3 narrow spiral staircases with high steps in these walls connect the floors. The structures of Divan Khan are located in a small square yard. In its center, on a promontory, stands a central octagonal pavilion, which it is thought was designed for sessions and state council. Divan, court, about which the inscription on teapans of aperture say, "And God calls peace into the house, and he directs righteously those whom he wants. Those who do kind things will have good. Even in ambiance, neither dust nor infamy will cover their faces. They will be the inhabitants of paradise, where they will eternally reside." Most scientists believe it to be a mausoleum. Its construction was not completed, and various stages of processing of architectural details show this. It is curious that in our national myths, the whole territory of Divan Khan, especially an underground chamber with a well called Dairy Well, was considered a sacred place, where women lacking milk while feeding infants recovered. The 8-sided mausoleum is publicly known as the Dervish Mausoleum, after Syed Yaha Bakuvi, an outstanding scientist at a courtyard of Halilullah I buried there. As Baku was an adherent of Sufism, the followers of his doctrine were called dervishes. To belong to a Sufi order was very prestigious. The whole mausoleum is laid out with narrow and wide stone lines, closely set and perfectly edged. In the 15th century, Syed Yaha Bakuvi was the main spiritual teacher in this territory, his name associated with many occult sciences. 30 of his works on philosophy, astronomy, history, mathematics, and medicine have been uncovered. They say that by the end of his life, Syed Yaha Bakuvi refused food for 6 months to clean up his spirit. Traditionally, it is obligatory to leave the mausoleum with the face towards the entrance, thus showing respect to the spirit of the buried. For the non-ordained, such rite looks exotic, but they execute it with pleasure. This burial chamber was constructed by Shirvanshah Halilullah I for his mother and son. Later, other members of the family were buried there. During excavations, 7 tombs were found beneath the floor, but remains were in only 5 tombs. 2 were empty. According to the 15th century medieval treatise, the Safavidian governor, Shah Ismail I, avenging his grandfather and father, promised to profane the Shirvanshah's tomb, conferring the remains of the fire of hatred. He wanted to remove the remains, burn them, and disperse the ashes on the wind. Probably in 1501, when Baku was captured by the Safavids, the remains of the 2 tombs were uncovered and destroyed, and the others remained untouched. Next to the burial chamber, there is a bath. Like most oriental baths, it has deep foundations, and all that could be seen outside were an entrance portal and the domes of large halls. Their tops ended in lanterns with holes for ventilation. This internal layout maintained the required temperature. The bath was supplied with water by a nearby Ovdan, a reservoir deep under the ground. The Palace Ovdan was one of the largest on the Absheron. It supplied drinking water not only to the palace but also to the population living nearby. There was a swimming pool in the center of the bath. There was a clear division between rich and poor in the waiting room, and well-off being served kalian and tea and standing on floors covered with carpets. As it was not accepted to bathe nude, the bath attendants distributed special on-hip bandages, pita, made from silk and flax. On certain days, when the bath functioned only for men, a black flag was hung out. The female days were signaled by a red flag. Bathhouses were frequented by matchmakers. As a groom had no opportunity to see his future bride, this business was entrusted to the matchmaker or mother and sister. The bathhouses provided the perfect setting in which to scrutinize body, legs, hair, and in general, all charms of the prospective bride. In the 15th century, due to the development of trade with a number of countries, the Shirvanshahs paid special attention to the construction of caravanserai. Near the Maiden Tower, there was located a Bakhara caravanserai and Multani Indian caravanserai, named after Indian merchants from the Multani province in India. In the 17th century, the prosperity of Baku city and the riches of the Absheron Peninsula attracted the attention of foreign bandits. According to legend, Stepan Razin, the leader of the Cossack movement in Russia, lived in this cave, which is the Bakhanov settlement. It has been called Razin's Cave ever since. The inhabitants of the Absheron Peninsula in Baku remembered his excursions for many years after. Before his campaign on the southwest coast of the Caspian Sea in 1668, Stepan Razin sacrificed his lover, a famous Azeri beauty, thrown into the waters of the Yak River. The year before, Razin promised to sacrifice his most precious possession to the water god of the Yak River in exchange for good luck. He kept his promise. It is alleged that she was Salian Khan's daughter, because 50 years later, the wife of Salian Sultan artfully killed the officers of Peter I, who were invited by her to a dinner party. Only vengeance for close relatives can explain such punishment. In Baku, Cossacks stole tons of gold and silver and razed homes to the ground. But Bakuvians, having assembled an army, killed almost all the invaders. Stepan Razin, by a miracle, survived. During archaeological excavations, the 17th century market square was uncovered, on which a museum of stone carvings, one of the most ancient skills of the Azeri people, stands today. Here you can see various kinds of gravestones, shaped as sarcophagi and chests. Inscriptions on the monuments declare the date of death, but rarely the birth date of the deceased. The gravestones of the men indicated by images of horses, pigeons, weapons, and prayer books, those of women by ornaments, beads, rings, and flowers. Quite probably, many unique products of these master craftsmen, which are displayed in museums all over the world, were bought in this market area. The Azerbaijan carpet, Chez Safi, adorns the Victoria and Albert Museum in London. There is a bronze Aquarius from 1206 with a mark of the master craftsman Ali, son of Muhammad, in the Hermitage. Jewelry of Azeri craftsmen of the 16th century adorns a shield with which Russian Tsar Mikhail Romanov defended himself. It is kept in the weapon chamber of Moscow. No less interesting is the Balshlik of Tsar Boris Godunov, made in Shamaha. In the very center of the helmet there are words, "In the name of merciful and charitable Allah." Russian inscriptions in Arabic style were quite often perceived as a beautiful ornament. Therefore, the Russian king did not suspect what appeal was exhibited on his forehead. Not only have secrets of the masons survived, but also those of craftsmen of national musical instruments. To make a tar, an Azeri musical instrument, one first must grow a mulberry tree on the slope of a mountain. It is essential to cut off a part of the tree, illuminated by only a full moon under a cloudless sky to ensure clarity of tone. Therefore, it was carved into the form of a tar. After rough working, the tar is left to repose in its sawdust for a year. By the end of the year, when the instrument is ready for further processing, a bull must be killed, its heart removed, and the thin film of tissue around it soaked off in water. This is cleaned and then stretched over the instrument and dried. Only by this method will the tar give flawlessly pure sound. Muslims have a day similar to the Christian Easter Monday, a sacred Friday, or, as Muslims name it, Jummah. Jummah is a day of solemn divine service, and for this purpose, special mosques of Jummah were built. There used to be an ancient fire temple where the present mosque stands. In 1437-38, under the order of the Shirvan Shah, Khalilullah I, the Jummah Mosque was constructed here, with an adjoining 18-meter minaret. Another minaret, that of Muhammad Sini Kala Mosque, is remarkable because it is the oldest dated monument on the territory of Ichet Shaha. It was constructed in 1078 to 1079. Its height is 20 meters. It differs from other Absheron minarets by its thickness, enormity, and decorative restraint. For more than 200 years, the minaret has had the name Sine Kala. In the spring of 1722, Peter I undertook his Persian campaign. Being refused the surrender of Baku, the Russian armies began to storm the city. One of the projectiles struck the minaret of Mohammed Mosque, and since then it has been known as Sine Kala, that means the broken tower. The cornerstone Islam is a widely and frequently used phrase. There is no God except for Allah, and Muhammad is his prophet. Muhammad, the great prophet, taught the devout about Allah's word and his will, his commandments, and his doctrinal essence. The basic ideas and principles of Islam are fixed in the Quran, the holy book of Islam. Islam is based on 5 pillars of faith: confession, prayer, fasting, almsgiving, and Hajj. One of the basic rites of Muslims, like Jews, is sunnah, cutting a part of extreme flesh. This ritual is a symbol of religious affiliation and is obligatory. Named the small wedding, the ritual is held individually in each family. After celebratory pilaf and rousing dances, a little groom gets gifts put on a honsha, a celebratory tray. The natural dye henna put on the palms serves as a distinction for the groom. Then the most exciting moment begins. The boy is changed into new clothes and the ritual dedication into manhood is made, cutting a certain part of the extreme flesh. Usually such an operation is carried out by a special delik. Nowadays a surgeon is usually invited. One of the general religious holidays is Guraza Bayram. This holiday lasts 3 days, during which each devotee reports on their conduct during the month of the fast. How carefully he observed the instructions, studied Quran, pacified the soul, tamed passions, and gave alms. During this holiday, sacrifices are made, such as rams and camels. Will be the transport, which will carry Muslims to paradise on the day of terrifying court. That's why on the 70th day after the fast, another holiday, Gurban Bayram, a great holiday of sacrifices, is celebrated. Before the approach of Nowruz New Year, Tuesdays are marked in Azerbaijan. On the last Tuesday, each family lights twigs prepared beforehand. People bypass the houses 3 times, crying incantations, "Run, run, devils! I will give you over to fire." This ritual expresses the belief that the dark forces are supposedly frightened and escape, not daring thereafter to approach the houses. It is necessary in each family to put up a fire on last Tuesday of the year, in which there must be a barb. According to the belief, the malicious forces try to put out fires set on this day by people as a symbol of the sun, a star which gives life to the whole world. However, because of barbs, which prick them, they are afraid to come near the fire. On a New Year's table, various dishes and sweets are served. In the 17th century, foreign visitors discovered about 500 Azeri dishes served by the Khan of Shamaha, and only 1/3 of these recipes have survived. The New Year's platter is decorated with sememi, a holiday wheat, and flowers. People light candles. At night before the approach of New Year, everybody should forget their worries and must maintain high spirits. The religious holidays and rituals are Godan, Oredru, the month of Negaram, and others, which are based on a lunar calendar. Nowruz Bayram, celebrated from the 20th of March to the 21st, is calculated on a solar calendar that corresponds with an exact astronomical event, transition of the sun from the southern hemisphere to the northern. In 1859, after Baku gained status of a provincial capital, its population began to increase day by day. Fortress walls from the seaside were destroyed, and the boulders used for key paving and the construction of houses. The streets were unattractive. If the wind blew, everything around was wrapped in dust. In the rain, the mud reached the knees. When it was impossible to cross the street, the porters carried pedestrians on their backs. The decades passed, and the glory of the capital of black gold was carried all over the world. Familiar by word of mouth with Baku Klondike, prospectors from all over the world started coming here. In Baku Bay, fleets of ships were moored, and factories grew up in the Black City, where the day was dark because of layers of soot. Here, even sparrows and seagulls, dogs and cats turned black. Though the industrial areas of city were reminiscent of the underworld, the city was improving. Baku was not considered to be a green city, and so the commandant of the city ordered the ship owners as the duty to bring some bags of peat for a governor's garden. Here in the garden, there were more than 12,000 trees of various types brought from all parts of the world. The garden was surrounded by cast iron fencing, on which a sign announced, "Soldiers and dogs prohibited." It was here on August 2nd, 1898, the French photographer Michon gave life to Azerbaijan cinematography. Since the 1970s, powerful oil geysers became a frequent phenomenon, but those who suffered were the inhabitants of nearby settlements. The rapid development of the Baku oil industry attracted the attention of foreign capitalists, who for a long time appropriated oil fields in all corners of the planet. The companies of famous businessmen such as Nobel, Rothschild, Henry de Turding, James Vichou, and John Rockefeller opened in Baku in a short period of time. Oil has been excavated in Baku since ancient times. The investment of major capital in oil production helped Azerbaijan to achieve its industrial, technical revolution. Since the 70s, the manual work of drilling began to be replaced by steam engines. On November 4, 1949, the first sea well of Neft Dashlari, petroleum stones oil field, produced oil. Но Баку петроле слова магические и для выдающегося ученого, и для парикмахера. Восхищает и по сей день то, что содеяно бакинцами в море, нефтяные камни. This unique city on a platform is situated 100 kilometers from the mainland, and its streets, industrial and living sites based on thousands of metal piles, tower over the sea. Today, the petroleum industry is experiencing resurgence. The deal of the century on joint development and distribution of extracted petroleum was signed between the State Oil Company of Azerbaijan and the major oil companies of the world. Oil is one of those phenomena with which Azerbaijan has surprised and continued to surprise foreigners. The oil boom marked the very beginning of life, and like a wizard, erected majestic buildings, which harmoniously suited the city and gave Baku originality and peculiarity. Only here you will find architecture of such different styles: Oriental, Classic, Baroque, Renaissance, Gothic, Modern, and etc. Like the pages of stone annals, it tells a history of the city. One of the greatest and most respected oil magnates of Russia and all the Muslim world was Gaji Zainalabdin Tagiev, oil industrialist and manufacturer, fish dealer, owner of mills and cargo ships. From early childhood, he carried on his head great tubs of mortar, learning the craft of the mason. And only at the age of 52, having bought the land on the money saved during all his life, he started drilling a well, which made the son of the shoemaker a millionaire Tagiev. Zainalabdin Tagiev had an ancient axe which served him faithfully when he worked as a mason. He hung this axe on the inside of his safe to constantly remind him about falsity of destiny and never to boast of acquired riches. For celebrations of the accession of Alexander III, the representative of the Transcaucasian Muslims to St. Petersburg was Tagiev, dressed in a traditional Muslim attire with bread and salt. Thinking that Tagiev did not understand Russian, the minister introduced him scornfully. "Your Majesty, he is the representative of a wild nation." Tagiev answered with dignity, "My nation is not wild, it has a rich and ancient culture." Tagiev spent his money on charity, mainly investing in education and culture. Besides, he founded a school of gardeners and florists, and also made a great contribution to the construction of the Sholar water pipeline. During the drought and poor harvest of 1892, prices of barley and wheat jumped tenfold. An epidemic of cholera began. People died of hunger and disease, and speculators sold wheat at inflated prices. Tagiev built 4 wooden barns, and all the contents were given to poor, sick, and hungry people. A strict adherent of custom, he nevertheless married the daughter of a hereditary nobleman, Arablinskia, who was 60 years younger than her husband. Their marriage was happy. In her, Tagayev found not only a careful mother of 5 children, but also a faithful companion, assisting to him in all charitable undertakings. The Sovietization caused terrible personal tragedy. Soon after Tagayev's death, the family was left without money and were persecuted. In the 20s and 30s, in streets of Baku, there was a poorly dressed woman with soiled hair asking for alms. That was Sona Hanım, the woman who personified the luster and greatness of the old city, one of the first Baku grand ladies. In 1938, Sona Hanım was found dead in a street with a slice of cake pressed into her hand. Tagayev constructed a palace as a gift for his wife, with 101 rooms and halls rich in decorative patterns. The doors were made of citrus trees, wall covering from natural leather, and parquet floors from 6 types of trees. 8 kilograms of gold were used in the decoration of the Oriental Hall, 4 kilograms of which went on the ceiling. Uniquely radiant windows were of pure Venetian glass. Today, the History of Azerbaijan Museum is located here. According to Oriental superstition, a man building a house never will be seized by death. Aga Musa was terrified of death, so in Baku he constructed about 70 buildings, many magnificent houses, which make the city so beautiful today. But among people, he was nicknamed Greedy. Aga Musa Nagayev was born in an extremely poor family. His father, Nagy, sold hay. Aga Musa, in his youth, was a porter walking Baku streets with a palan on his back. Thanks to his grasp of business and oil, he grew rich and became a millionaire. In Nagayev's house lived his Muslim wife with children. And he, with a second Georgian wife, moved into a 3-storied building. Here, Aga Musa didn't appear to begrudge spending money. A dome on the roof could be seen from everywhere. There was a small site with a flower bed in front of the house. The interior of this palace, with its rich bas-reliefs, molding, gilding on the walls, and ceiling was equally magnificent. There was parquet of all conceivable and inconceivable forms in rooms and halls. The mirrors were ordered from Italy and the furniture from France. Nagayev adored his second wife and tried to please her in every possible way. Once wealthy wives were going to a charity ball. Each woman put on richer clothes to eclipse the others by their radiance. The men among themselves chose the queen, an Ossetian Lisa, the spouse of Murtuz Mutarov. She appeared twice in the evening, in different clothes and different complete sets of jewelry. At first with jewelry from large diamonds, and then replaced with a complete set from huge almond-shaped emeralds. Each complete set of jewelry weighed not less than 700 carats. However, when Aga Musa's wife came into the hall, everyone stood still. Emerald-shaped as birds and butterflies of different colors covered her. The Georgian's hair sparkled with diamonds, and she had gold shoes on her feet. For a long time, there were conversations about this evening in the city. Millionaires did not keep precious stones in their houses. For this purpose, there were special safes in city banks. Together with the originals, copies were made. They wore fakes at the weddings, balls, but the diamonds and emeralds were kept in safes. Certainly nobody knew about it, but all these riches were digested in the stomachs of proletariat. These invaluable works of art were sold to Iranian merchants in exchange for flour, grain, peas, raisins, and other products to feed people and horses. Once at the meeting of a Muslim charitable society, when Aga Musa Nagayev entered the foyer, Sona Hanım hurried to him. The girls pinned a silk ribbon on the millionaire's breast. He took a green 3 rubles banknote out of the pocket and threw it on the tray unwillingly. Sona Hanım smiled and said, Aga Musa, your son Aga Ismail has just thrown on a tray 100 rubles. But you, Aga Musa interrupted her. He is a son of millionaire Nagayev, and I am just a son of the poor peasant Nagy. When Aga Musa was asked how was his business, he would respond rather vaguely. My business goes the same as nobles. The flue is wide but short, so there is more smoke than heat. Nagayev constructed this graceful building, Izmaili, for a charitable society in memory of his son. In the base of this building is a steel casket which is sealed. in which is fixed a gold bar with the date of the beginning of the construction. The building of Ismaili is in Venetian Gothic style. To emphasize that the building belongs to the Muslim Charitable Society, on the main and lateral facades, the sayings of the fourth Caliph, Imam Hazrat Ali, were cut with gold letters. The man towers by his work. Muslims, your century dies with you. Prepare descendants for the future. Seek knowledge, no matter how far the way. Unfortunately, in the Soviet time, the building was being restored with predilection. The Imam sayings were removed, and en bas reliefs with gold stars, new attributes of the Soviet epoch, appeared. This palace was constructed within 1 year in French Gothic. Being with a young wife on a tour to Europe, Murtuza Mutarov was fascinated by the architecture of Venice. His wife Lisa, a hereditary Austrian noblewoman, daughter of a General Tuganov, having seen an exquisite palace in Venice, said, "What a happiness to live in such a palace, Murtuza." In the East, a female lover's wish never remained without attention of the men. Having arrived home, Mutarov sent the architect Kloshko to Italy and ordered the construction of an exact replica in Baku. While the construction was underway, Mutarov kept the gift a secret from his wife, and when the palace was ready, Murtuza suggested Lisa taking a walk to the city by carriage. Passing the palace, Lisa was surprised and exclaimed, "Murtaza, precisely the same palace as we saw in Venice. I wonder who lives there." Then Mutarov suggested entering it to find out. Upon approaching, the doors were opened by his servants, and Mutarov said, "Dear, this palace is yours, and you are its mistress." The events of 1920 were a tragedy for the Mutarovs. Unable to stand the Red Guard's abusiveness, Murtuza Mutarov committed suicide. The 11th post of the Red Army was placed in this beautiful palace. Lisa Hanım settled in the basement of her own house. Having married fictitiously a Turkish diplomat in order to emigrate, she left Baku for Istanbul. On the way, her companion stole all her remaining jewelry and disappeared. Lisa Mutarova lived in Istanbul till 1956. And the palace, constructed for the sake of love, serves us now as a symbol of happiness and as the official site for civil marriage ceremonies. There is an opinion that oil is a godsend and can enrich both the individual and the whole community. Shamsi Asadullayev became an independent oil manufacturer, possessing his own firm only when he was 50, with bountiful experience behind him. Shamsi Asadullayev lived and grew in a country rich in oil, where people, due to their national ability, energy, and will, turned with improbable speed from poverty into millionaires. Beginning as an ordinary coachman, by 1910, Shamsi Asadullayev had 37 oil wells. Having no education, he was a major contributor to the largest Transcaucasian educational institution and established 2 grants in his name. Both the Caspian Sea and the Volga were plowed by ships and boats belonging to Asadullayev. Among the people, he was known as a thunderstorm of the nobles. Wherever the brothers Noble opened offices, there was immediately an office of Shamsi Asadullayev nearby, which sold oil much more cheaply. Thus, Asadulleyev's private residence was constructed in a classical style with geometric lines, beautiful arms propped up on the balconies. The facade is finished with domes and neoclassical vases on the roof of the building. The opening of the Opera Theater in 1911 was a great event in Baku. In 1910, a renowned diva came here. She electrified the public with her beauty and enchanting voice. One of the millionaire brothers, Melov, spent many a sleepless night trying to attract her attention. He tried everything, showered her with gold and jewelry, arranged balls and parties in her honor. The brothers, Melov, were well-known fish manufacturers, owning caviar production plants. As there was not an opera house at that time, the guests gave concert in a circus or at the stock exchange building. A dinner was arranged after her performance, during which she was asked whether she would return to the city again. She shrugged her shoulders coquettishly and answered, "Probably never." "But why, Hannah? Has someone offended you?" Mylov asked resolutely, expressing his readiness to act as a gallant knight. "Oh no, simply I am not used to performing in a circus and casino. Indeed, I cannot fathom why in this perfect, wealthy city, where such generous people live, there is no opera house." Without hesitating, Malov said, "Come to our city in a year, Hanum. We shall construct a building worthy of your art. and you will open it. No sooner was it said than done. Working in 3 stages, the architect Babayev constructed this majestic building in the modern style. As building material, they used eggs, 500,000 of which were gathered from the villages. The ceiling was covered with layers of velvet and then felt to create perfect acoustics. Mylov sent a telegram to the singer announcing completion. She came to Baku and took part in the celebrations. After the first aria, it was impossible to walk on the stage because of flowers. And at the end, Mylov presented her a bouquet of different banknotes. The opera theater towered above decrepit hovels, and the streets surrounding it were still unpaved. When it rained, the mud around the building caused great inconvenience to the theater goers. And not to despoil themselves, they hired porters and were carried on shoulders to their carriages. And in the morning, the porters boasted to their friends what delectable beauties they had embraced the previous night. The history of this house is linked to the name of the well-known Baku businessman and merchant, Gaji Mamed Karim Ramazanov. On the first floor of the house was the electric theater, which belonged to the house's owner. Gaji Ramazanov lived on the 4th floor of the private residence with family and servants. He loved music and literature so much that he frequently arranged musical majlises, assemblies, in the apartments. Childless for 12 years, Ramazanov made a vow in the Juma Mosque. If his wife gave birth to a child, he would send the baby's weight in gold to sacred places. And when, in 1889, a daughter was born to Ramazanov, he ordered that the infant be placed on the scales, and on the other side gold coins were poured. It was short by several gold coins, and the happy father took off his belt, threw it on the scales, and then, having wrapped all the gold in poncha, he sent it with his close associate to Khorasan. Because at the time, European construction styles were in fashion, decorative motifs of Eastern architecture were seldom employed. Ramazanov's house is one of the few constructed in national romantic style. Every house constructed in the oil boom period has an interesting history, such as this magnificent building in French Renaissance style, where the State Petroleum Company is now based. This house belonged to Said Nurbabayov, to whom petroleum brought unexpected wealth. Being a famous singer at wedding ceremonies, he received a gift of a piece of land in which an oil well was drilled. Becoming a millionaire, Said Nurbabayov bought this house from a rich merchant. Because of affluent oil manufacturers, we can admire original architectural products today. The majority were uneducated.